And we are live here on the Beaver Politics Network. This is Radicalized with your host, Mr. Radical. Welcome aboard. If you're just joining in, we're just getting tuned up for the show at 6 o'clock here. Just going to get set up here for the show. If you're just joining in, welcome aboard. Kirby, welcome aboard. We're just starting the pre-show here for Radicalized, starting at 6 o'clock. TBO items, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining in. We're just on the warm-up show to Radicalize, starting here at 6 o'clock on the Beaver Politics Network. And I think what I'd like to do today, if you're just joining in, what I'd like to do is get a little bit more international flavor to the show today. So what I'm hoping is that somebody from another part of the world other than North America can join in and join me here in the box and have a discussion, because I think what I'd really like to do is get a little bit more flavor as to what's happening as far as opinion across the world on obviously what's happening with Donald Trump. Um, if you're just joining in, welcome to the show. This is the pre-show warm-up to Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network at 6 o'clock. And what I'm hoping is that somebody from another part of the world other than North America, one or two people can join us here in the box and hopefully get a little bit more of an international flavor to the show today. So if you are from another part of the world, I'd like you please invite yourself up to the board here. I'd like to hear your opinions today on what's happening. I am Mr. Radical. You are just joining in for the pre-show here to Radicalize starting at 6 o'clock here on the Beaver Politics Network. The Beaver Politics Network is about knowledge through discourse. The only way that happens is if everybody gets a chance to speak and everybody feels like they have been heard. But if you are going to come in, you're going to be ignorant and start to use slurs or anything like that, we will ask you to leave the show or simply boot you from the show. We are about open discourse, even if that conversation can sometimes be difficult. And considering the politics of the world today, it's going to be difficult, I think, any way that we look at it. If you're just joining in, welcome aboard. I'm hoping somebody from other than North America, if you're just joining in, would like to invite yourself up to the box here. I'd like to put a little bit more of an international flavor to the show today. So if you are from another part of the world other than North America, if you could invite yourself in, that would be terrific. Excuse me. Matt B, just welcome. David Moore, just welcome to the show here. You're just on the pre-show to Radicalized. Bella, welcome aboard. Hey, Jude. We are just on the pre-show here to Radicalize, starting at 6 o'clock here. And what I'm hoping is, if you're in the box here, what I'd like to do is have you invite yourself up, please, and ask to join as a guest. What I'd really like to do is have a little bit more of an international flavor to the show today. And I'd like to see what the opinion is around from other parts of the world about what is happening here in North America, particularly with Trump and Canada and Mexico. Am I conservative or lib? I am lib. Canning, Coolmoody, welcome to the show here. If you're just joining in, my name is Mr. Radical. We'll be starting the show at 6 o'clock here, Radicalized on the Beaver Politics Network. We are all about open discourse and knowledge through discourse, and the only way that that happens is if people are allowed to speak. So the format of the show is to have Hey Sasquatch, is to have open discussions, even if the subjects are difficult, but every person will be allowed a full opportunity to speak and be questioned here on the show. That is how Beaver Politics work. That is how my show Radicalized work. So if you're just joining in, what I'm hoping today is that if you're from another part of the world than North America, I'd love for you to join in and request an invite here up to the box. I'd love to get a little bit more of an international flavor to the show today. So if you are from another part of the world, from North America, please invite yourself in. I'd love to have you aboard and get your opinion about what's happening here in North America. Oh, just getting sorry, some of the technical aspects of the show out of the way here. Ah, Treaty, sorry to hear that. You guys go, relax, take her easy. We got her. Hope you guys feel better. Hope you don't get muted again. I'm not sure what happened last time, Sasquatch. I'm not sure what happened there. But if you're just joining in, welcome aboard. I am Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. What I'm hoping is to get somebody that is not from North America here in the box today and get a little bit more of an international flavor to the show today. So, what I hope is that if you are just joining in, if you're from another part of the world other than North America, if you could ask, just pop yourself in, click one of the pluses there, and I'd love to have you up in the box here and get a little bit more of an international flavor to the show today. So if you're just joining aboard, welcome aboard. Tapping is clapping, sharing is caring, and we'll be starting the show here at 6 o'clock. So if you're just joining in, I am Mr. Radical. This is the Beaver Politics Network. The show is Radicalized, and we are going to be discussing, well, we're going to be discussing a lot because I think there's a whole lot to discuss right now. We can pretty much, good heavens, take our pick of subjects. How do I feel about the PPC party? Uh, PPC party. Um, Clear that up for me. Which PPC party are we talking about here? Gen Xer had to be the biggest victim last night, I guess. Yeah. Um, Well, I mean, there's a lot of ground to cover. I mean, every day there's just Maxime Bernier. Yeah, yeah, Maxime Bernier. Okay, enough said. What I'm really hoping the subject to be is I'd like to get somebody that is not here from North America to join up in the box. So if you are just joining in, if you are from a different part of the world than North America, please click on the invite box here. I'd love to have you up, and I'd like to get a little bit more of an international flavor to the show tonight. Um, a People Party wingnut fiasco. I'm gonna have to figure out. I'm gonna have to find out a little bit more about that because I got to be honest. I'm shooting in the dark on that one. I don't know anything about what's going on with that particular subject right now. Um, he wants to make Canada great again. Yeah, sure he does. Anyway, so, if you're just joining in, if you are from another part of the world other than North America, I hope that you click on the invite box here. I'd love to have you up on the show. I'd like to get a little bit more of an opinion from across the world as to what's happening and what they are seeing, and not just confine it to Canada. While Beaver Politics does predominantly work with Canadian politics, the international community is something that we certainly can't ignore, and having their voice in here is going to help us solidify our voice and so on. So if just give me a sec here. Alrighty. So, welcome aboard. We're about 5 minutes away from starting Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. So, welcome aboard if you're just joining in. We're going to start the show at 6 o'clock Eastern. Sharing is tearing, clapping is clapping. So, hit that share button, hit that like button. I think we're going to have a good conversation tonight. I think there's a lot to talk about. So, if you want to get in, come on in. And especially, I'm hoping that somebody that is not a North American citizen. I'm hoping that you invite yourself into the box here tonight. What I'm really hoping is to get a little bit more of an international perspective on what's going on here. And perspective is something that I talk about incessantly in my private life and at my work. And I believe that perspective is often a defining thing for changing people's opinion. You do whatever you're comfortable with, Sasquatch. Whatever you're comfortable with. But remember, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. You are joining Radicalized. We're just on the pre-show warm-up here. We're going to be starting at 6 o'clock here. Keller,
Hello, how
welcome
are you?
aboard. Welcome to the show. Can I get an age and an approximate location for you?
My name is Keller. I'm 39. I'm in Alberta, Edmonton.
Alrighty. Welcome aboard the show. Just to lay out a few ground rules here on the show. If you're not talking, please have your microphone off. This show is about allowing everyone an opportunity to speak. So, Keller, just quick on what's on your mind tonight.
Not much. I just thought, I would join and say hello. What are you guys' topic about?
Well, what I'm hoping tonight is to have somebody that is not from North America come into the box and get a little bit more of a perspective on what is happening with international politics here as it pertains to Canada. Now, obviously, we know that we have a new Liberal leader and a new Prime Minister in Mark Carney. He is axing the tax, which I'm sure is going to put the Conservatives in quite a state at this point here. So, but if you're just joining in, if you're not from North America, I'm hoping you click the invite here. What I'd like to do is have a little bit of an international perspective here on the show tonight instead of just North America. A perspective is a word that I use often, and perspective from different parts of the world, I think, can only add to and enhance the conversation. So if you're just joining in, Sasquatch, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Just having a quiet day today.
Excellent, excellent. Any quick words before we start the show here?
Do we have any particular topics? Or are we kind of speaking about Canadian politics specifically, or what did you want to kind of stick to today?
Well, I think, like I said, what I'm hoping is that somebody from other than North America will invite themselves into the box here if you're just joining in. And what I'm hoping is to get a little bit of an international perspective on the show here and hear what other parts of the world have to say about what they see going on here. Like I said, obviously, we have a new Liberal leader, we have new game plan coming in. It's kind of same old right now. We're kind of stagnant until we know when the election is coming here.
You betcha. I'm disappointed. I seen Jake Meat posted on his account here today, and he did sort of a me versus Polyev thing again today. And I'm like, bro, that division is tanking you. Like, take the hint. You know, you can be a stand-up guy and talk about how you're a hardworking guy, but I was so happy to see Jake Meat a couple months ago, and he was like, we're gonna bust up the oligarchy and tax the rich and kick corporate landlords out of Canada. And then he's just like, I'm better than Pierre. I'm like, no, Jamie, no, don't go down that road. So I was disappointed to see that kind of, he's not quite getting the point. I don't think that that is tanking the NDP. And then, I mean, yes, we'll get, it's going all towards liberal popularity, which I'm okay with, but I don't know, having a centrist banker with an economic background. Well, it'll be curious to see what Carney does on the subject of busting up the oligarchy, because he's an economist and absolutely he's a very, very intelligent man. But I'm a little bit nervous about him being aggressive and tackling that oligarchy, because as Canadians, let's be real, it's corporate greed and oligarchy and lobbying that is destroying this country. And if you think otherwise, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. But I'm hoping that Mark gets in there and does some good for the greater people and not just on paper. You know, our GDP might be strong, but per capita, Canadians are struggling. We're really,
Yep,
really struggling. So,
yep, I couldn't agree more. Alrighty, it is 6 o'clock, so we're about to start. Welcome aboard if you're just joining in. I am Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. I have a question. What is Beaver Politics? Beaver Politics is a format that we are offering. We have multiple different hosts, multiple days of the week. We're currently going 7 days a week. Now, our platform is all about knowledge through discussion. We want to offer a platform that everybody can come to. Everybody gets a chance to speak. The ground rules are please have your mic off when you start the show if you are not speaking. If it gets to the point where you are being derogatory or bringing it down to that level, you will be asked to leave or you will be silenced or simply let go. The format of the show is knowledge through discourse. The only way that happens is if everybody feels like they have had a chance to be heard and that everybody gets to voice an opinion uninterrupted. That's the format of the show. So if you're just joining in, we are operating 7 days a week. My show is here on Saturdays at 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern. Remember, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. Angela, welcome to the show. I'm going to ask you guys just to hang tight here. I'm just going to do a quick thing and we'll launch from there. I wanted the show to be a little bit more unstructured today and see just kind of what floated to the surface, because I think that we have a whole lot of topics that we could possibly go on. What I am hoping is that if you are not from North America, if you're watching the show, I'd love it if you'd invite yourself into the box here. We would love to get more of an international opinion on what's happening around the world, what's happening as it relates here in Canada around the world. So if you are not from North America, please, please invite yourself into the box here. Welcome to the show. Tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. Now, obviously we've got a whole lot of things to cover, but the reason I wanted to reach out is on today's show to an international audience is we have seen a massive outflow of support from other parts of the world toward Canada. We're pleased and excited, I think I can say for all Canadians, we are absolutely tickled pink at the support, because as a general rule, I think we as Canadians feel like we have been stabbed in the back. I don't know any other way to phrase it. I don't think there's a more politically polite way to go about this or to phrase it, because when you look at the history between Canada and America, it has been a history of cooperation almost no matter what for well over 100 years now. And it looks like one of the greatest friendships that the world has known in recent times is coming to an end. And along with feeling like we've been stabbed in the back, uh, I
I
I think betrayed
I think betrayed.
is something that we. Lynn, could I get you to shut your mic off, please, for the moment?
Yes.
Thank you. It's betrayed, and we are. And again, I think we are sad about it. I don't think I'm speaking for uh, too few Canadians. I honestly believe that a lot of us are absolutely sad about the situation, where it has gone, where it has ended up. We feel betrayed we feel sad. We are thrilled at the outpouring of support from the international community, from other parts of the world. And if you are not from North America here, I'd love if you'd invite yourself in, hit that plus button. I'd really like to get a more international flavor to the show tonight and get some opinions from around the world. Uh, but
I
I
agree
just
with
want to.
you 100%.
So, Lynn, can I? First off, I'm gonna have Angela come up first. She was first in the box. So, Angela, can I get a rough location and an age for you as well, please? Hi, Angela.
Sorry about that. I thought my microphone was on. Hi, I'm from Ontario and I'm 61.
Welcome to the show, Angela.
Thank you.
Lynn, can I just get you to shut your mic off while other people are speaking, please, and thank you. Go ahead, Angela.
So first of all, what's the topic that we're first starting on?
Well, as I said, I believe that we as Canadians are feeling somewhat backstabbed, and I think we're feeling a little bit sad that uh, a partnership that has been so successful for so long looks like it's basically just heading right down the toilet.
And I totally agree with that. We've had a close relationship. We built a close relationship throughout the years. And it's pretty sad that after so many years of working with our ally, that has come to this where they are attacking us. But they're not attacking us. It's the government that's attacking us. And for no reason. The free trade was actually something that Donald put in place, remember, with Mexico and the former prime minister at that time. He put that on place, right? And
Yep.
then he gets elected in the second time, and now he wants to eliminate everything, our total partnership, and is putting us at risk as a Canadian.
And Angela, I mean, what's the greater emotion for you, betrayal or sadness that this might be heading the way that it is, and even to the point where Fat Arse is talking about possibly using military force.
And that's scary. It's absolutely scary. Can you imagine? We're your allies. We're Canada. Do you remember 1812?
Yeah.
It's like he's living in the past, right? And he's going back to 1812 when they tried to invade us here, and back then it was under Britain, right?
Yep.
And it's like it's living in the past, and that's scary because first he's trying to do an economic crisis on us, right? But the
Yep.
same token, he's threatening us at the same time by trying to take away our land. This is our land. This is actually native land, right? This is
Yep.
native land.
Yep.
And and he's trying to take the land away. We are our own country. United States is their own country. We would
Yep.
never think about invading the United States. Why would they think about invading us? For no
Yep.
apparent reason.
Yep. Well, that's what happens when you put a low IQ sociopath in the White House. Lynn, can I get a rough location for you and your age? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm from New Brunswick, Canada. I'm 54 years old, almost 55, and I'm a retired school teacher.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm the same as Angela. I think it's very sad that we've come to this point. When I found out Trump was in office, I was really discouraged. And I'm sorry, I'm French, so sometimes I won't say the right words. But I was very discouraged, and I honestly didn't think it would be as bad as it is right now. Him threatening our sovereignty, and he cannot stop talking about it. It's like, leave us alone. We're not going to be part of the US ever. We've got NATO backing us up. We've got the whole country back. Why can't he move on to something else? And then he puts these tariffs, and whatever he promised US citizens, he's not doing. He switched the script, and he's focusing on Canada, Greenland, Mexico. And I actually heard that he put tariffs on Australia. They have
Yep.
nothing to do with anything.
Yep. Yep. No, he's gone after the EU with tariffs. He's gone after Australia, Canada, Panama, China. But the interesting thing, if we look at the pattern of what he's doing, essentially he has spent more time focusing on his, or what should be America's allies, than anything else that he's got going on. Now, do I believe a lot of his threats are serious? Yes, I absolutely do, because I believe that's the plan that Putler stuck in his head. And if you've heard any of my TikToks, I've been talking about power blocks and essentially power blocks, continental power blocks, the North and South American power block, the Asian power block, and the European and African power block. And right now, they control essentially 2 out of the 3. And my worry is that was the entire pitch to dump is, look, you take care, if you can basically ransack North America, America controls all of that side of the ocean, we control this side of the ocean, and I think that was the sales pitch to Trump. I honestly do. Sasquatch, what do you have to say?
Sasquatch.
Well, I think if I had to sum up my emotion on the thing, it's disappointment, and it's disappointment beyond just, sorry, there's a bit of a, there we go. It's disappointment, and it goes beyond just, of course, Trump's pretty illogical way of dealing with all of this. Like, I'm not, I don't want to say I'm not surprised. It's a little bit more than you would expect, but he's very openly very pro billionaire, and he's for the rich. But what bothers me is that we don't have the, maybe the government, the structure, and even just the general populace's mindset of kind of being ready to combat that. I think people are becoming a little bit radicalized, and I think people are, like someone said in the chat, that people are really starting to learn about, like when we had Mark Carney come in, and I didn't vote for Mark Carney, and people are starting to understand the way our government works. Or even in the last few months, oh, healthcare is so bad, it's Trudeau. And well, that's a provincial issue, buddy. Housing is a provincial issue. Immigration is a provincial issue. And so it's nice to see people being a little bit more educated and coming out to bat. But at the same time, it would be nice to see, the entire world be a little bit more anti-corporate, because it would put in place a system that doesn't allow for this to run rampant. Maybe if there was a little bit more, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I'm by no means an economist, and I'm not, the most educated about the world's government, but it would be nice to see a system in place where everywhere is kind of looking out for people's interests, and that's the rule and not the exception. Because if you've got this giant system where billionaires don't really know borders, and they're not really, they don't have any consequences, there's no accountability. And even with this giant market crash, whether you look at between, ICE raids and disrupting the supply chains, you've got trade wars, tariffs, you've got threats of war. That all affects the markets. That affects the way people buy and sell stocks. You've got a massive stock market crash. And all of that is all to benefit billionaires. I don't care how you slice it in one way or another. Trump is not a very intelligent guy. I don't know how much of this is his design and how much is someone pulling the strings. But this is all going to be a benefit to the billionaires between buying up cheap stock and, small businesses or medium-sized businesses going under and being bankrupt. And those big guys are going to be able to float that out and just gobble up everything they want. And that's a scary thought, because we're already in a state of, especially in Canada, we're very heavily monopolized. And that's just not a very healthy economic ecosystem, to have everything very overly centralized, and there's not a lot of health and diversity in the market. That's not a good thing for anything, whether it's the environment or our economy or our cultures. It's not a good way to have only one way and only one thing. And you see that in American culture, not just their politics, but you see, what does the cat have to say? It's probably very important.
Yeah, we have a special guest host tonight. This is the Smushy Man. He's
Hi,
decided
Smush.
he's gonna join us tonight. So, and I totally agree. And I want to throw this out there. If you're just joining the show, I am Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. Lynn, can I get you to shut your mic off, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Um, the show is Beaver Politics. The show is Radicalized here on Beaver Politics, and I'm hoping if you're just joining in, if you're not from North America, please hit the little plus invite here. What I was hoping is to get a little bit more of an international perspective on what the other parts of the world are seeing. So if you are not from North America, please invite yourself up. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But Sasquatch, I completely agree with you. Like, we have to really understand kind of who are we actually fighting. And I fully believe that we are fighting the rich. Like, this isn't really particularly a left thing or a right thing. I believe this is a poor and a not poor thing. OW, welcome to the show. Can I just get you a quick location and an age for you, please?
I am from northern Alberta and I'm 37.
Welcome to the show. If I can have you just shut your mic off here, I'm going to go right down the board and get everyone's opinion. So
Yeah,
we'll
that
get to
sounds
you
good.
in just a minute, OW. Angela, go ahead. What do you think?
First of all, I think the personality, as we all know, of Donald is a narcissist, and he's always been this way. And if you know anything about his family history, you understand what his father was like, exactly what Trump is like, and that's very scary. What he's trying to do is get power over and monopolize as many countries as he can. It's all about power with him. And that's something that we need to really be concerned about. That's why the other leaders around different countries are already looking and sending out the red alarm about this. And for ourselves, we're caught in the middle of it, right? Because this affects our everyday life, right? There are people losing their jobs right now as a result because of layoffs, because of these tariffs that go on and off, on and off. So he's using
Yep.
that as a tool to gain power to get whatever he wants. And that's pretty scary. And now it's scary to go over to America right now. Look what happened to the young lady that was detained.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
About that.
Lynn, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Heard about that. And that is scary. It's a scary thought that he has the power to detain a Canadian for being it's ridiculous to me. And can you imagine you go to the States and all of a sudden you're detained and put in these cages or whatever they call it? It's scary. I know for myself, I will not be going to the US anytime soon. For sure.
Anastasia, I see. I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. Anastasia, I see that you're from Australia. Uh, Bring yourself up here. I'd love to, like I said, I was hoping to get Anastasia. Welcome aboard. Could I get location and a rough age for you, please?
Yeah, I'm in this Australia and I'm 50 years old.
Welcome to the show, Anastasia. I love to have you aboard here. You've been listening in, I'm assuming, for a little while. Tell us from Australia, what's your perspective, Anastasia?
I think we need to make the Commonwealth strong again. I think we've seen that US doesn't stand by its historical allies. The US always held back in World War One and World War Two, and they waited for it to directly affect them before they stepped in. World War Two, they didn't step in until Pearl Harbor. I've got two brothers who are ex-army who have both fought alongside the US, and to hear that completely denigrated by somebody with the moral compass of dog vomit like J.D. Vance is horrendous. And the military's attitude in Australia is becoming increasingly anti-US and increasingly pro our Commonwealth allies. There's quite a strong sentiment here that we should be closing Pine Gap and pulling out of AUKUS.
Wow. So, I think it's safe to say, what's in general terms, the rough percentage of the population that is on board with that stance? Because we know for a fact that no matter where we go, we're going to have that right-wing element in the country. If you had to take a rough guess, what are you looking at in Australia for that percentage?
We've got an upcoming federal election here, and the party that's known as the Liberals here, which actually aren't Liberal, they're moving more towards the right and they're moving more towards Trump-style politics. And I actually think the USA has done us a favour. They've been sending out dog whistles for racism, for slashing government spending, for ceasing policies that increase equity for our citizens. Australia prides itself on being quite a lot like Canada in terms of our social systems with universal healthcare, universal education. So it's more of a land of opportunity. It's not the haves and have-nots. Peter Dutton, who is the head of the Conservative Party, has chosen very poorly to put himself in the same basket as Trump, and there was some fear that he may win this election initially, and now I don't think he will. I think Trump has shown everybody what those politics lead to, and that we should definitely not be allying ourselves with American-style politics. People here hate Elon Musk. They're terrified of the rich getting richer and seizing government control. And if anything, the USA has done us a favour. We are looking more now than ever to build stronger alliances with other countries from a military point of view, from a social point of view, from a trade point of view. And I celebrate the fact that Canada holds all the potash and that US is essentially rooted. Oh, good on you guys. I believe that your strong leadership that you've demonstrated over there in pushing back against ridiculous 1926 style tariff economics has inspired our current leadership to push back also and take a strong stance instead of being sycophantic puppies for the elites who don't care about the average human being. They've absolutely done us a favour. I believe that our current leadership will be returned in the next federal election, and a big part of it is that people are watching what is unfurling in the US. And even people who are relatively socially conservative, people who've, again, both my brothers, military,
Lynn?
they're going to sorry, I don't know how to turn my speaker off.
Okay, I got you there.
Even
Sorry,
people who might have,
go ahead,
that's okay.
Anastasia.
People who may have voted on the more conservative side before and were sitting on the knife's edge, I believe are coming back towards the left. And there's ex-military people speaking out very strongly about pulling out of the AUKUS arrangement, which I don't know if you're aware what that is. That's
No.
with the purchasing of submarines from the US
Okay.
to military. It's an
Right. Okay.
arrangement between Australia, the US, and the UK. So Australia actually paid $500 million to the US as a down payment on that arrangement so that we would be able to purchase nuclear submarines and share intelligence with the US and the UK for a program with our Navy. And there's quite a lot of sentiment to be pulling out of that agreement now from an Australian point of view. Our budget is in the positive. We have a stronger economy than the US. At the end of the
Nice.
day, we don't need them. They give us nothing.
And I think that something that America is gonna figure out in a very painful kind of way, that the propaganda that they've been fed that the world just cannot do without them is beginning to shatter for even kind of the average American who has never traveled. And I mean, let's face it, a good chunk of them haven't even been out of their hometowns, kind of thing. So this perspective that they're the greatest, most important place that the world just can't get by without them, I think they're in for a little bit of a shock here to realize that they are not the world power militarily, yes, but socially and economically, they're not quite in the standing that they were 30 or 40 years ago. So, Anastasia, I'm going to come back to you. Thank you so much for that perspective. And
I enjoyed that.
what I'm hoping, I'm going to accept one more person. Lynn, that darn microphone of yours. OW, I'm going to go to you next here. And but Canuck 570, welcome to the show here. Could I get a rough age and can I get a rough location for you before we start here?
Oh, I'm a rough 59 dude, and I'm from London, Ontario.
London, Ontario. Welcome to the show. I'm going to go over to OW. John. John hasn't had a chance to speak here. And then Canuck, I'm going to go to you, and then Lynn, you afterwards. So OW, Canuck, can I get you to just mute your microphone? And then OW, you haven't had a chance to talk yet. What do you have to say from Alberta, I think?
So my perspective from Alberta is similar to how a lot of things are happening right now. So right now, and that with everything that's going on, and that between Canada and the U.S., and that what the U.S. I don't think quite realizes is that 90% of the stuff that they get, like oil, water, power, some food in that they get from us. So in my honest opinion, they get about, so currently right now, Canada's got around 800 million barrels of oil. Most of their natural gas comes from us. And yeah, we may have a tariff on them and that when it comes to dairy products and that, but that's because their dairy industry isn't as clean as it is here in Canada. So that's why we have such a large tariff on them. Now,
and I just want to, for everybody, hang on, OW, I just want to throw this out there because this has been misrepresented a lot. So this nugget is important. It is also on a quota system. So that tariff doesn't kick in until the quota has been met. Sorry to interrupt. Continue on, OW.
oh, that's not a problem. I was actually getting to that. Like, I'm not 100% sure, and I'm pretty sure Anastasia will correct me. Now, I did hear that Trump was going to put a tariff on Australia. I'm not sure what that percentage is or how accurate that is.
25% on our steel and our aluminium.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you for
So
correcting
steel and
me.
aluminum.
Yeah.
But yeah, like with everything that's going on, it almost seems like Trump is going to war with every ally country, which isn't necessary. And what's going to end up happening, like, I get the youngest person here in this live and everything, but at some point, I have a feeling more is going to end up coming, and unfortunately, that's what's going to end up happening. I would hate to see it, but the problem is that the U.S. is going to end up tearing relationships with every ally country in the world, especially in the UN.
And OW, there's my son-in-law and I went today and got our pals. And from everything I've heard, we certainly are not the only ones with that exact position in mind, unfortunately. At 29, you said, I believe you said you're 28 or 29, but I I actually really appreciate OW coming out here because while all of us old fogies definitely are going to have our say, I really want to hear what the younger generation has to say, how they're viewing the world, and how these things are affecting you guys. So, thanks very much for actually coming in the box here. What else do you have to add to that, OW?
Um, like, yeah, at 37 years of age and everything, like, I'm a father of two,
Okay.
and like the way the tariffs are working right now, like it's getting harder. And that, like, my oldest is in college and everything. Like the way she's looking at it is like the way the tariffs are, and that she may not even be able to get a job after she's out of college. And I'm starting to worry about the same thing with my son and my
Yep.
nieces and my nephews and younger relatives that are my cousins and everything else. Like for me, it's not so much worrying about what's going to happen to my generation, it's what's going to happen with their generation. And like I've come across TikToks of Americans complaining about the tariffs and everything else, and sitting there saying and that, oh, we don't have anything that's from Canada and that, but their homes are built out of Canadian lumber for one.
Yep.
Their piping is from aluminum, which comes from Canada. Like I'm not trying to be rude or controversial and that to Americans that are in the stream or anything, but I think they need to grow a brain and have a clue.
Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, exactly. Like what they don't quite understand is like most of the goods they get come from other countries, and that's the problem.
Yep. Yep.
And I will actually mute and let Canuck talk if he's ready.
Much appreciated. Thank you for the respectful conversation. I need to throw in the plug for the show here. If you're just joining aboard, welcome aboard. The show is Radicalized. I am your host, Mr. Radical, here on the Beaver Politics Network. Remember, guys, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. What I'm hoping is that Anastasia, thanks so much for being our international voice today. But I'm really hoping that somebody else that's not from North America can request in because I really want to make this show more about what's happening on an international scale and get viewpoints from other parts of the world. So if you are watching, welcome aboard. And if you are not from North America, I hope that you put yourself in queue here at some point so we can have your opinion voiced here on the show. So, Canuck, go ahead. What do you have to say about all this?
I think it's very discerning. But yeah, the tariffs are very discouraging. I guess I'll start with I work for a company. I'm in automotive. I we supply. Yeah, try not to hate me, but we supply our biggest customer is Tesla. Sorry, but that's how it is. So that business so far is still there, but I realize that I'm probably going to be looking for a new job soon. But the good thing is, I am a skilled tradesman. I am an industrial electrician. I've been in automotive and related industries for 30 years. So, you know what? I'm a survivor. I'll be good. It's fine. It's going to be bumpy, but I'll be fine. But the
Hey,
tariff,
Canuck, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, I certainly understand your position, but skilled trades are not. I'm sorry to hear that, bud.
thank you. Thankfully, yes, I am in skilled trades. My son is he's a chemical engineer. He works in Sarnia, Ontario, for a one of the best companies actually in Sarnia, and he's good. So thank God he can support me if need be, Dave.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I think that family support is going to be something that uh, is going to be not so much from our past anymore. Canuck 570. I honestly believe that.
but anyways, as far as the world today, I'll try and be brief. And my philosophy is I agree to disagree, and I respect everybody's opinion, because you know what? If I don't respect your opinion, um, how can I expect you to respect mine? So that's how I live my life. That's me. So saying that, the tariffs, I don't get it, because okay, we've got our brothers and sisters down south that their government, it's not even necessarily their fault or in their control, is putting all these tariffs on different countries, including us. And it amazes me they don't understand how it works. That, okay, Joe USA goes and buys a widget from wherever for $100, let's say, and there's a 25% tariff, so the widget becomes $125. They seem to think, and I've heard it and I don't understand it. They seem to think that the $25 is going to be paid by whoever, but not them. It
Yep,
doesn't work that way. No, it doesn't. So
yep,
if Joe USA is getting this widget from, from Canuck, let's say, it's $100 and it's $25 more, then it's going to cost them $25 more. They don't get that. It's
yep.
the importer that pays the tariff.
Yep, but I gotta throw this in there, Canucks. When you have Caroline Levitt, who's the White House secretary, she is coming out and purposely and deliberately misinterpreting the information for the average American. I mean, we got to understand that this is a population that almost half of them, don't read at a high school level. We're talking about an elementary school vocabulary, much like their God Trump. When you're dealing with people that simply can't understand the complexities of what we're going on in an education environment that doesn't help them, this is exactly the type of misinformation that's so easy to plant, and they just simply run with it because they don't have the knowledge base. So, while I agree, Canuck, I mean, we've been arguing this now for what, the better part of 3 months. And if you still ask the average American, they still believe that this is a tax on the foreign company, not them. So, how do we combat this when we are getting literal misinformation directly from the now American government? So, sorry to throw that. I'm throwing you off there, Canuck, but I had to throw that in there.
No, you're right. You're not throwing anything off. You're stating the obvious, and it's sad in a way, because I know in this country, when we run across the people that are in that situation, I'm trying my best to be very very neutral and political. Um, we try to help them. We try to maybe hug them and give them a little bit of some pancakes of maple syrup. We try to help them. We do, but Um, I there's only so much we can do, but saying all that, I do not. I swear to God, I do not want to hate in any respect my southern brethren because of what's going on. Because if you know the history of Canada, it was founded on originally the loyalists that were loyal to Britain moved up from the states, and they came into Canada. There's a bit more to it than that, but a lot of it was that.
Yep.
Like we're all brethren. Like
Yep. Yep.
I
And I
want to
think
support them.
And I think that that's why I mentioned at the start of the show. I think that Canadians are dealing very much with two different emotions here. We feel like we've been stabbed in the back, and we are sad that we have lost a friend. And I don't think you would disagree with me on that.
No, no, I don't think we've lost a friend. I think our friend is a little confused and maybe pissed off, and not of our doing necessarily, um but at the same context, we do have to stand up and protect ourselves, absolutely, but it's so complicated. It's not a one-off statement. It really isn't.
No, no, it really isn't. Sasquatch, I'm going to go to you, and then Angela, and then Anastasia. I'm going to go back to you after that there. So, Sasquatch, go ahead.
Well, as somebody that lives in BC and I'm a tradesman myself, I'm a loader operator, unfortunately, in northern BC. So it's not ideal right now because this market is very, very oversaturated. And for myself as well, I'm looking to change vocations here because one, the pay is so, back in 2002, like I was saying last night before I got muted, that I was training loader operators in 2023. I was getting paid 21.60 an hour, and I was expected to rent a car. And it wasn't just us, but we also had in the US, so the whole West Coast from Alberta to Alaska to California. I was supposed to rent a vehicle and drive and train all these operators. And I'm telling them, like, at 21.60 an hour with retroactive pay, retroactive LOA, which could take months to get back. I go, you're going to put me in the poorhouse doing this, right? I had a winter
Yep,
job and it was okay to float doing it that way, but I didn't have the time. They said, well, spring we travel. And I go, you're going to have to pay me up front or you're going to have to significantly raise my pay. And I ended up cutting ties with them, and unfortunately, it's sad that I'm like child free. I have no student debt. I drive an old junker car, and I should easily be able to, buy a little trailer and be comfortable and have a little bit of savings. And I have none of that. I had to dump my RRSP, and I'm in the poorhouse right now. So luckily for me, I'm going back to be a heavy duty mechanic, but my plan was to eventually, I mean, I want my schooling to be in BC because BC is kind of the top of the pack there. So I'd like to come back for each level, but I'd like to go work in Alberta in the oil fields because they are dying for truck mechanics out there. They're absolutely screaming for them. But with the whole tariffs going on, what's the crude situation going to look like? Are we going to decide that, you know what, we're going to build refineries that can handle our really heavy crude in the West? Or are we going to diversify our market? Is that going to disrupt our supply chains? Is that going to, disrupt the industry? What's that going to look like? I'll be a pretty high demand and higher level, skilled tradesman, but it's
yep,
still going to hurt,
yep,
and for me, the fact that we're even, since 2016, our softwood trade agreements are in the toilet with the US. It's crazy that that has not been addressed. And it's no hate to Trudeau or anyone else, or whatever. That's more on the US side. It's insane that that has been allowed to just run rampant and tank. Not only mills, but small logging companies. My dad lost his company in 2019, his business of 30 years he built from the ground up. And he picked a very bad time to kind of up the ante and go from road building and kind of pile and burn and stuff like that to actually having equipment and trying to log. It was very bad timing, but he lost everything. They had a 6-bedroom, 4-bath house in Prince George, and they had to sell everything and get rid of the equipment and everything and move to a small house in Mackenzie to survive. And they're happy here, but I mean, it's hard because that's where all of our family is.
Yep.
And I came up here to help, and I'll be at the mines. I run loader and rock truck and excavator, and I'm gonna have a house in 6 months. Well, it's been 2 years, and I'm traveling 2 hours to Prince George just to run loader for $25 an hour. It's pretty grim. So, for me, I would really like to see some kind of thing with Carney. If he's an economist, hello, we're Canada. We need to take a look at these softwood trade agreements. We need to take a look at the logging industry. It doesn't just end with the mills. You've got millwrights, welders,
Yep.
electricians. You've got truck drivers. There's saw filers. There's so many trades that are disrupted. You've got all the logging roads that the graders go and maintain. It's a huge amount of well-paying tradesman jobs that are being completely obliterated with this logging industry. And to me, it's insane that we're selling them cheap raw wood. We basically sell them our raw wood. We're selling them all our equipment from Canfor, the old Canfor mill here in Mackenzie. My neighbor, she was hired by a contractor to wash the equipment, and then Canfor has basically, or other companies in the States have bought it and moved it down to the States.
Yep.
And so we're just giving them, or we're handing our logging industry to them on a platter, and then we're buying the lumber back processed. That is, not only is that economically stupid, environmentally, the diesel, what a absolute waste to have wood not being processed in northern BC to send it down to Arkansas or Oregon or Alabama and then ship it back here and buy it at Home Depot is absolutely ludicrous. And if Carney's
Yep.
an economist, and if we're going to have a more left-leaning party that's hopefully environmentally conscious, we need to take a serious look at that. And if we're going to start throwing down tariffs, then we better be tariffing that raw wood and that heavy crude hydro. I don't care. Like, we need to seriously take a hard look at this, because we've been getting screwed. It's not just today in the tariffs. As far as logging goes and crude, we have been getting screwed for a long time on that one. And the fact that this has been sitting, next year, it'll be 10 years. Those trade agreements expired and no one's done anything about it is
Yep.
absolutely insane to me, because like I say, I'm born and raised in Prince George, BC. Logging runs the world there. And if you don't have tree planters coming in, you don't have the hotels suffer, the tourism suffers. We don't have new construction being built to welcome in all those people. We have students. It's a good student town, but that's declining as well. And here in Mackenzie, I've said before, we used to provide over 40% of the tax revenue for all of BC. This town has 2,900 people. We have 2 pedestrian operated traffic lights in this town. It's a tiny. We just got our 5G this year, guys. Last year, we just got our 5G here. So, to think that these little towns, and another lady I was talking to, she said Fort St. John, that the hospital, the ER's never open. Same with here. And it doesn't just affect us economically and the GDP. Real people here, a lady died last year because she couldn't make the ambulance ride to PG. She had a heart attack, and her husband lived here their whole life, worked hard, paid their taxes, and they've been completely abandoned. And these little towns could expand. There'd be great cheap housing for people, but no one can get jobs here.
Yep.
There's no healthcare is collapsing because a nurse isn't going to
Yep.
come here if her husband can't get a job running equipment. No one will hire
Yep.
him. Then why would
And
they put the nurse
it's
somewhere else?
it's so reminiscent of what was happening in the East about 20 to 30 years ago when fishing was collapsing, and now we're
Yes.
kind of seeing the same sort of thing happening here. But I think a lot of this is so cyclical in nature as we go into particular services, whether it's fishing or forestry or tourism. All of these things peak and valley, but one of the troubles, like I agree with you, Sasquatch, one of the troubles that we're seeing, this isn't just a normalized valley according to our economic system. This valley is starting to be manufactured by the systems that are in place.
Yes.
So, Angela, we'll go to you next, and then Anastasia, we'll get right back to you.
Well, first of all, I'm terrified. Personally, I'm terrified. And I'm in the same situation as you because I'm looking for employment and it's scary as heck. And it's getting worse now ever since this since Donald Trump's come in and all these threats with these tariffs, and the market is saturated as it is. I can't imagine now what it's going to be like looking for a position. What supports are going to, they keep speaking about they're going to put supports in for workers
Yep.
who are affected directly by this. But there's also individuals that are going to be affected indirectly by this as well. Are there going to be supports for us as well? Because this is affecting everyone. And the reality is, that's exactly what he wants. He wants to saturate, he wants to lower and, pretty well take our country down. And it's not going to happen because we're going to
Yep.
fight. And Carney said directly that he, especially being an economist, he's very much aware of how to handle situations like this as far as the economy. So we were very good and fortunate to get Carney in at this point. And but the point is that we're suffering still right now, and the uncertainty is scaring me, terrifying me each day. I have no money coming in right now, just like others out there as well. I'm looking for position, and guess what? Everything is saturated. So
Yep.
everything turns around and it all affects us one way or another. So how do we get out of this is the main thing, right? It's
Yep.
affecting us mentally. Right now, we just got over a pandemic and now we're facing this.
Yep. Yep. And Anastasia, we'll go to you next here. I want people to be well aware and understand that so much of what we're experiencing on an emotional level, this was on purpose. This is manufactured. They have done everything that they can to lead the population to this point. So much of the outrage that we are feeling is absolutely justified and completely unjustified in the fact that we are basically being pushed toward this outcome. What the question that I have always been asking is, what is the ultimate goal that they are after? I've said now on more than a few occasions that I believe The Handmaiden's Tale is the journey, the Hunger Games is the destination. So, Anastasia, I'll go to you, and then Lynn and OW will catch you after.
Look, I'm inclined to partially agree with you. I think there's a huge problem in the US in that they allow religion too much role in their politics. I find it remarkable that they would. I'm a critical care nurse and have been for 26 years, to watch women's health rights be rolled back to where they'd rather have women die from an ectopic pregnancy in the name of so-called life. I mean, what life are they talking about? They don't want to publicly educate the children that actually exist. They have a 6th grade reading level, and I think they rely on that because they actually don't want the working or middle classes to be educated and be able to rise up against what is essentially economic tyranny. I think he's intentionally doing a pump and dump on their economy so that they can dump the share market and then buy back in when it's low.
Yep.
I mean, my family's in a lucky position. I have a solid government job. I work in public health. That's not under threat in Australia. I'm a limited resource in the role that I perform. And we carry no debt. We've been very economically conservative in how we run our life. I feel terrible for people who have overextended essentially to buy housing and that the market is about to dump, and then they're going to have more on their mortgage than what they have equity in their home.
Yep.
There's going to be terrible outcomes for that. In Australia, we have a superannuation scheme that's largely in the international financial market. My friend lost $13,000 out of his superannuation last month because of what Trump's doing. So it does affect people of retirement age in this region. That's for sure. I think we really need to move away economically from the US entirely. I'd like to see a reverse Brexit with Britain going back to joining in the EU and the Commonwealth
Yep.
and us all uniting very strongly.
Yep.
Germany's the third or fourth largest military superpower now. I think we should be looking very carefully and being more militarily aligned, ironically, with Germany and Japan. Who would have thought we would have said that after the Second World War, right? That the US is no longer our ally, but Germany and Japan will be. And frankly, the US is in really big trouble if the EU will get together and decide to take over what is international finance. Because how are the US going to pay back their debts to China on what they owe? What are they going to do? Like, I foresee civil war in their country. I'm not scared of what the US is going to do to any of us. I'm scared to what's going to happen in their own society. You have extreme left and extreme right who both meet up at the anti-vaccination stance. They have children dying of measles. They have a massive tuberculosis outbreak.
Yep.
It's a matter of time until we go back to children and adults dying of measles, chickenpox. I've nursed people on life support who are unvaccinated from chickenpox. These are not harmless diseases. Their children are going to die in the US. And I think there will be a civil war. And I think it should be known as well that in Australia, we have more gun ownership than they do in the US. And so does Canada. We actually have more firearms per population than what the US do. Their problem is cultural. They buy guns to shoot each other. They buy guns in the name of self-defense. I mean, this is a population who are primed to shoot each other. Where in Australia and Canada, that is not our value system. If we buy firearms, it's for pest control, for farming. I myself am a primary producer. Nobody in Australia buys a gun legally saying that it's to defend themselves.
Yep.
That is not how we do things culturally. And in fact, we had an incredibly successful gun buyback program in Australia after the mass shooting in Tasmania. We have 0 school shootings. We have 0 school shootings here. How many do you have in Canada?
We have our current rate of gun ownership is about 1 in 4 Canadians own a weapon. I myself and my son-in-law became part of that crowd this morning. And right now, we have had 1 mass shooting in the last 10 years, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but the number is low. But we haven't had a out-and-out mass shooting in quite some time here. Maybe somebody can correct me on the last actual occasion that happened here. It's someone Sasquatch. Do you want to? Sasquatch? Can you fill us in on that one?
I think
one
it
in
was
Ontario
in
there.
Nova Scotia. I think it was in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, Lynn's correct.
Scotia?
Yeah, she's
Okay.
right. It wasn't Ontario. It was Nova Scotia. You're right, Lynn. You bet.
Yeah,
if you want to speak, Lynn, I can jump. I can jump off if you want to speak, Lynn.
I just wanted to add to. I think it was in Nova Scotia. The dentist that went on a rampage.
Yep, you betcha. I thought it was. I thought it was a pub or a nightclub. That's what I thought. But I mean, I could be incorrect. I thought it was a nightclub, but I might be incorrect. I saw like a very brief TikTok on it, and I haven't really. I don't have cable, so I don't watch a ton of news. So I tend to have to kind of scroll online to go and find it. I thought it was a nightclub in Toronto. That's what I thought too. I think there was one in Nova Scotia not long ago, though. If I'm not. I swear it was at a bar or a nightclub in Toronto, and that was last week. But I think there was one in Nova Scotia, within the last 6 months as well.
But I think the biggest mass shooting we had, the last one, the mass shooting where they killed the most people, was the dentist in Nova Scotia.
Yep.
I think so.
No, you're right.
I think you're right. You betcha.
Yep. Anastasia, to your point is we've had to kind of debate when and where. So that gives you a rough idea of the volume of gun deaths that we deal with here in Canada. We just don't deal with it that much here, even like I said, in spite of 1 in 4 people here owning their PAL's license and probably owning more than one weapon at a time. If you, especially if you head to more of the rural sections, I'm sure that proportion changes quite literally. Obviously, places like BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan are probably going to have a higher ownership rate than, let's say, Ontario, Quebec, with their larger centers. Now, um, I just want to mention something here that uh, while I absolutely fundamentally believe that you should have a right to own a weapon, the types of weapons absolutely should be controlled. I am of the opinion that most of the modern high powered assault weapons, I mean, we're talking about fourth, fifth, sixth generation killing tools. They only have one purpose. Their ammunition only has one purpose, and that's to cause the maximum amount of damage. Now, do I also fundamentally believe that you should be able to go to a place where these types of machinery is controlled in a regulated environment and be able to go shoot your brains out? I do believe that in and of itself as well. While I don't believe that gun ownership is an out and out right as a fundamental, because part of our population simply should not own weapons. OW, what do you have to say about that?
So here in Alberta, most of the people that do own firearms are farmers and law-abiding hunters. Most of the time, so there was a shooting where I live. I do believe was back in 2016, but that was several years ago. But the problem is where there was somebody in the comments in that mentioned about Trudeau banning illegal, like banning firearms. So I kind of want to touch up on that person's comment. That's military grade firearms that he banned, not, and most high powered hunting rifles. So anything over, I do believe, is 300 Magnum. I do believe. I'm not 100% sure. Um, but the problem with that is like you're punishing law-abiding hunters and farmers that shoot predators that kill our livestock. And this
Mm-hmm.
is coming from somebody who is coming from a farming family.
Yep.
That's how I look at it. Like if we
But
have animals that are like predators that are killing our livestock,
yep.
if we're not allowed to shoot the animals that are killing our livelihood, why be in the
Yep.
farming industry?
Yep. But I don't
Can
believe
I
that's
just ask
the.
something, OW?
Yeah, please go
Yep, go
ahead,
ahead.
Anastasia.
Can I ask something of OW? What is it that you need to kill that you can't kill with a 223?
Wolves, bears, cougars.
But don't you think a 223 does a pretty good job? I say this as somebody who is a gun owner and gun user. I feel like the uh, equipment that are outlawing probably in Canada would be similar to Australia. Like as somebody who owns guns, uses guns, and is a primary producer, I don't really need much more than a 12 gauge shotgun and a 223 to clean most stuff up.
Yep. Now, I will say, Anastasia, up here, some of the game is a little bit bigger than your average predator down there. You're not going to take a 6 pound, 6 or 700 pound bear down with a 223. Now, I will say on that, I mean,
Well,
once you
that's a
start
fair point.
talking, yeah, like when we're talking about a 7 or something like that, that's going to take pretty much anything that's in front of you down. These weapons are still perfectly legal, and I think that justification, we have to understand that even something like a 7 that is a powerful rifle, and it is a damn powerful rifle.
Yeah, like
A good point because we don't have predators that large in Australia. So that's a good point.
Yeah,
yeah, because in
yeah.
my
No, the game
location
is
we have
certainly.
grizzlies.
Yeah, and so OW, well, I absolutely agree with your point there. I think what is available should be, for the most part, uh, um, what we have available to the general public should cover most of that territory. I mean,
Yeah,
like I said, when you're dropping something with a 7 mm, it's going down.
yeah, like fish and wildlife, like fish and game in this area, they can hammer down on you when it comes to some things, but they're pretty open minded in that when it comes to protecting your livestock. Um,
Yeah,
but the problem that we're having is like there's large wolf packs here. Like we've got numbers of wolf packs in the high 30s here. And then for a while there, we were having issues of coyotes and wolves breeding together because the wolf population was hunted to basically no existence here.
right.
And then they were brought back. And then we just started having problems of coyotes and wolves and then stray dogs. And and then it escalated to bears coming down from the mountains, which causes an even bigger issue here. So then because coy wolves will sometimes breed with domesticated dogs that have went feral. And while domesticated dogs that have gone wild will kill just for sport.
Yep,
And then it's a
yep,
whole brand new issue. So then we basically have to go on a mass extermination hunt to get rid of the problem. Now, for me, as somebody who comes from a farming industry, like coming from a farming family, not only are we doing it to protect our livestock, but we're also doing it to protect our kids.
yep. Yeah,
Like,
they'll take a 20, 30, 40 pound child without too much trouble. Yep.
yeah. And that's the issue that a lot
Makes
of
me
farmers in
happy to
our area
hear,
are facing.
OW. It makes me happy, OW, to hear you say that you are talking about protecting your children from wild animals. Your intent when purchasing rifles is not to protect your children from other humans. You can see the
Yeah.
cultural connection that Canada and Australia has, where we do not buy our rifles and shotguns to shoot other humans. The problem is in America, they seem to buy guns specifically with the intent of shooting other humans in the name of protection. But their
Yeah.
gun violence actually just ends up killing their children and loved ones.
I agree. I
Well,
100%
I think the difference in the thinking lines between the two nations is, for Canadians, a weapon is still a tool. For a lot of the American population, these things have gone into every other status except a tool. And I
Well,
think
yeah, and
that's
that's
the
the issue.
general difference in our thinking. For them, that weapon is lined up in every other avenue than for us Canadians, where it is usually a tool of existence or protection in and of itself.
I
Well,
know
yeah, exactly.
In New Brunswick, the people that owns guns, it's for feeding themselves. They want
Okay.
to they
Hey
want to shoot
guys,
deer.
sorry, I've got to interrupt and I've got to lay this down for a ground rule because the conversation has gone in this way.
Okay.
Please do not use the generic term. Please use pew pews or weapons, please,
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Unfortunately, the live will get shut down if we're not super careful
Okay. No,
about our wording.
I'm gonna be very careful. I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no problem.
No, but here in New Brunswick, we use pew pews. I'm gonna use your pew pews, and we use pew pews to hunt uh food, to hunt food for the winter. we pew pews, deer, moose. We have seasons that are designated for that. You can't do you can't do pew pews any time of the years. There's only a certain amount of time that we and you have to have a license to do that. So where I live, I'm not worried about gun control because it's not pew pews. Sorry, we're not worried about that because most people only use them for hunting to feed themselves.
Yeah, there was a comment. I think Sasquatch, you put it up there, and I certainly don't want to speak for any of our Indigenous peoples here, but the reality is, for a lot of our Indigenous peoples, a lot of their kids have got a weapon in their hand before they've got a lot of other things because it's the part of the reality of their existence.
I would actually like to comment on that because I do have Indigenous blood and family members
Yeah,
within my
please do,
family.
OW. I'd love to hear that. Yeah,
So in a lot of places in that have Indigenous families and that, so like Nunavut or reservations within our local provinces and everything. So the reason behind all of that, like they're taught at a young age to hunt and to have respect for that animal and the
yep,
animal that they're hunting. And the reason behind that is like to like within their culture, those animals are put on earth to provide for their families. And they're thanking that animal for feeding their family, to allow their family to live. And when you're taking those rights away by taking their hunting rights away and taking their firearm rights away, like not only are you putting an entire culture to no existence, you're taking those rights away. And that's the
yep,
problem.
yep,
And a lot of these people, and that, like, yes, I will admit that there's a lot of firearm instances on reservations or Métis settlements or anything like that. Like, I get that there's a lot of violence that happens with firearms. I get it. But you're punishing the people that are law abiding by taking those rights away. Like, there
yep.
has to
I would
be
agree.
a fine line of give and take of what you're doing. And that's what, in my opinion, and I'm not knocking Trudeau or anything, but growing up the way I did, I grew up knowing that the Liberal Party was public enemy number one.
Hmm.
That's how I grew up. And coming, like I had mentioned, coming from a farming industry family, the Liberal Party was, of course, public enemy number one. Now,
Yep,
I'm not that type of person that would go and sit there and voice my political views to anybody else to change their minds. That's not who I am. Everybody has a right to vote for whoever they want. That's the great thing about living in such a good democracy like Canada. And even in
I
Australia or the UK or anything like that, like they have such great democracies that allow us to have that choice, unlike
yep,
the US.
yep,
And the way I look at it is that not everybody has the same point of views or views on how their government should be running things. And that's why I like the way I see things in that, going back to that previous point with First Nations, is that yes, so there's a lot of people who are unlaw abiding citizens that own firearms. Yes, there's tons of people out there like that. But then there's the people who are, and they're the ones that are being punished because of the people that don't know proper firearm safety. And that's where the issue is becoming.
yep,
New Brunswick, we've had one maybe 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, that wanted to kill police officers, and he did it. But that's the 0.5% of all New Brunswickers. They have guns, pew pews, sorry, pew pews, to hunt. That's it. We have a safe province. I know I go out of my house, I don't even lock my doors. I'm not. That's how I'm not scared of pew pews. But you have one crazy person that ruins it for everybody. I
Yeah, and
call.
that's yeah. Isn't that the fundamental problem? I mean, across the board. I can't speak to what I do for a living, but I work with groups of people, and it never fails to amaze me how quickly one or two people can completely devolve an entire group.
And that's what I was saying. Like, it also affects half of my dad's youngest brother's business. Like, my dad's youngest brother is not only a roofer by trade, but he also is a hunting guide. So
Right.
all these gun laws and that do affect his, or firearm laws, I should say, sorry. It affects his other half of what he does for a living. So to me, it's affecting a family member's business. And that's like, and like I had mentioned before, like, everybody has a right to their opinion and everything else. It's just sometimes a government's opinion is overstepping on what the citizens' rights are.
Okay.
And that's no.
I'm gonna interrupt here. My apologies, OW. Lorena Lynn in the comments here is saying the Orange Guy just enacted wartime powers. That is essentially locking America down into martial law. Uh, Lorena, thanks for throwing that in there. Can anybody dig up some more information and see what's going on there? Frontline, hey girl, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I will do the digging. You guys keep having your conversation. I'm going to look into this and then come back to me in a couple minutes, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Angela, we'll go to you, and then Anastasia, I'll catch to you. Just give me two shakes here to do something, guys, but go ahead and start the conversation, Angela.
Sorry, the speaker takes a while for me to get on. Sorry about that. My apologies. So, will we be continuing the conversation about what we were speaking about? Are we continuing on with... Is our conversation still about...
Not 100% sure.
Okay, so I'll just say something anyway. As far as what we've been talking about, there is information that is coming out, but I don't want to discuss it because now that Frontline is looking into it, I'm not going to say anything about it. However, I mean, the reality is that there is a lot happening here in our country, and unfortunately, Trump is trying to divide our country, divide our people, and we're not that, and we'll never be that. As Canadian, and as a Canadian, we'll all stand, and we will, take whatever we have to fight what's happening. There's a lot of uncertainty for the next 4 years while he is still in office, and the reality is that we will stand together, and we have a new PM that is in now, and he's a good economist, and he will fight for us, and we will see what the outcome, but I'm more than positive that it's just with Trump, it's all about the same thing. He's just using this as fear. He's bullying us, and I don't know. It's exhausting. It's really exhausting.
I couldn't agree more.
I
Couldn't agree
agree.
more. Lynn, go ahead, and then Anastasia, we'll go back to you.
I know that I'm a 54-year-old retired school teacher. I have a pension. I have my disability. I'm I'm okay. But what I'm worried about is that I have a 23 and 24-year-old, and it's scary for me as a mother what Trump is
Yep.
doing. It's scary. The life that they're gonna live, they're gonna have to live with if Trump gets his way. And when I fight for uh, Canada not being the 51st state, is because I don't want my kids to grow up in the 51st state, and that's my choice, and it should be my children's choice, and I try to educate them on the worries that I have as a mother, and I I I love most US citizens. It's not their fault. It's most of them, they didn't choose Trump. They didn't choose him. But now that he's in power, it's scary as a mother of a 23 and 24-year-old what's going to become of their quality of life.
Yep.
And
Yeah. I have two kids in their mid 20s. Yeah. Early 20s and mid 20s. Yeah, I hear you, Lynn.
yeah, and it's scary. It's scary because I didn't have to worry about that when I was 23 years old. I was good. I went to university. I've
Yep.
been a teacher for all my life. I never had to worry about anything of that. And now my kids, I have to educate them that they have to worry about their livelihoods and starting World War III. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm more informed than they are because they are doing their little lives and going to clubs and having fun. But I'm going to be the one that has to educate them that this might happen. What are you going to do? What are we going to do? It's scary for me as a mother. I'm scared of that. I'm scared for our country.
Lynn, I'm not going to kid you. Part of what I do when I first started going on TikTok, my wife was on it first, and when I first started going on TikTok, a lot of my stance was simply about uh, re-educating people on atheism and what atheism actually is and what it looks like, because of really to combat the misinformation that was being spread about atheism, but. Uh, with the course of events and how things have gone over the last few years, I've become obviously incredibly outspoken about political matters. And in spite of me knowing that this could ultimately put me in a lot of jeopardy, I was also of the opinion that I am not going to sit by and do nothing.
I agree. And I'm the same way. I'm the same way. Like I said, I'm a retired school teacher, and I believe in right and wrong. I believe in right and wrong. I believe in the good in people. I believe that there are bad apples like Trump.
Yep, yep,
And and I try to, because my children are not following these issues on TikTok, it's my job, even if they're 23 and 24, it's my job to educate them. You have to be worried about this because it can affect your lives.
yep.
It, I
And
still do
even,
that. I still
yep,
do that. I
yep.
still educate them.
Yeah, my daughter and her man who I went and got my weapons license with this morning. When we talked about this subject a year ago, it was a non-starter conversation with them. They just weren't simply interested, and their opinion was not much different than a lot of people in their age range. Uh, when you ask them now, things are definitely thinking different. They feel different. they understand now, I think, that there's been a line crossed where if they don't pay attention, the results are not going to be good. So, Anastasia, I'll get a word from you, and then Frontline, I hope that gave you enough time. So Anastasia, what do you have to say about that?
I just feel terribly sorry for that average American who never asked for this. And I can see people in the comments saying they're ashamed to be American. Don't be ashamed, be active. Try and fix
Yep.
things from a grassroots level. You have Republicans who refuse to do town halls, who are getting actively booed in public, who are resorting to getting veterans arrested at public meetings and dragged off rather than facing the fact that they are betraying their own veterans and the veterans of other countries. Organise and rally from a grassroots level where they cannot shut you down. We know that most Americans actually didn't want this. We know that they didn't understand what was probably going to happen. I would say that maybe 30% of people did want Project 2025 and are Christian nationalists and white supremacists. But that leaves, 70% of people who aren't necessarily racist, who don't necessarily support somebody who commits SA against women, who consistently breaks the law and just declares bankruptcy rather than owning up to his financial failings. But they need to organise on a grassroots level to make it clear. And I agree with the last speaker, with Lynn, that we have to educate our children so that our children understand politics. That's incredibly important. Where the education system has failed our young people, especially with the disruptions of COVID, which happened worldwide, that their education was interrupted. We need to educate them. And to say that I'm looking at this man saying Heartland America has strong traditional Christian values. If you're an actual Christian, then which part of the New Testament are you not agreeing with? Because the New Testament doesn't agree with RAPE. It doesn't agree with murder. The New Testament frankly states that Jesus would wash the feet of the poor, not take away their health care, not take away their access to housing, not take away their access to education. That is not Christian. Christ would not agree with what is going on. Trump is in no way a Christian and does not represent Christians. I am an atheist. I'm not a Christian, but I know a lot about Christianity. And I can tell you now, Trump in no way represents Jesus.
There was someone,
Against myself.
there was somebody that said that one of the reasons that the evangelical movement picked Trump is because, excuse me, excuse me, they picked Trump because he is essentially everything that Christ is not. So stop and think
Completely
about that.
agree.
Yep.
I do not understand to say that being Christian is cultural. I mean, this isn't even being Christian. This is Old Testament law that they're following, where they want
Yep.
Israel to rise again. This is Old Testament. This is to do with being Jewish. This is nothing to do with the New Testament anyway. None
Yep.
of this represents actual Christian behavior or morals.
I'm
And I agree with
Christian.
Alex where she says they want the rapture.
Yep.
I'm Christian, and I don't believe everything they tell me. I'm just because I was born that way. I believe in some things and not believe in some other things. And my mother will disagree with me, of course, because she's a devout Christian. But Trump is trying to say that he's Christian, or JD Vance. They're trying to say they're devout Christians. But Trump has been married how many times? How many children does he have? with different women, that's BS. It
Yep.
makes no sense.
Yep. And I've asked that question actually on more than a few occasions. Is if you're telling me that a supreme being is looking for somebody on Earth here, to get your shit done, because obviously you can't do it yourself, but you would think that this being would have access to the best and the brightest and the most charismatic and intelligent. He would literally have his pick of the greatest minds on the planet, and he decides to go with a diaper wearing geriatric narcissistic sociopath. Frontline, I want to get you back on board here. What did you discover?
So he tried to invoke the Alien Emergencies Act of 89 to deport 5 Venezuelan nationals because he cited that they were, part of the Tren de Aragua gang. And
Right?
a judge intervened. So Judge James Bossberg, he issued a temporary restraining order. So he blocked the deportations for at least 14 days after the lawsuit that was put onto him by the ACLU and Democracy Forward. But it's only a temporary pause. So for those of you who don't know, the Alien Emergencies Act basically gives the president sweeping powers to deport, detain, or relocate immigrants based on their ancestry. Historically, it's been used only in 3 times: War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. Yeah, basically all of the smart people in the room are basically saying that invoking the act now is an absolute overreach and part of his broader effort to label migrants as invaders and terrorists. And he's been laying the groundwork for this move by framing immigration as invasion. And when it comes to martial law, it's not martial law yet, but it's a dangerous step in that direction, right? Because the Alien Emergencies Act, it grants wartime powers without requiring a formal declaration of war by Congress, right? So he could just skip over Congress completely, which was obviously a legal loophole for him to justify mass deportations and suspension of civil liberties, right? So
Yep.
if he does expand his precedent, then it could serve as the foundation for declaring a national emergency, which then could lead to him declaring martial law under the guises of defending the nation from an invasion. So it's heading that way. And on top of it, too, like, I don't know if you guys heard, but I think yesterday or the day before, he started saying that MSNBC and CNN are, if they criticize him, they're deemed illegal. So we're going to start seeing media go bye-bye very soon. We're not going to be able to hear much about what's actually going to happen.
Heard that. I also heard that.
Yeah. And yeah, there's a bunch of stuff I wanted to bring up some more, but I'll leave it for that now so you guys can kind of chew on that. I don't want to overwhelm the crowd.
Okay. Thanks so much, Frontline. So Sasquatch, we'll go back to you. I'm just looking at the time at 7:33, or I think we'll give it about 10, 15 more minutes here. Give me half a sec here. If you're just joining the show, I am Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized every Saturday here, 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern. Don't forget that tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. I want to thank everybody for popping in here. Beaver Politics is all about knowledge through discourse. The only way that we have proper discourse is everybody gets a chance to speak and everybody gets an opportunity to say what they have to say uninterrupted. That's the format here. Some of the subjects that we cover are difficult. Some of the people that we have here are difficult, but that is the entire point. If surface is all we ever do, surface is all we're ever going to get. So
Thank you.
Sasquatch, and then Angela, will go to you.
I want to say thank you for your life. It's been very good. Thank you.
Thank Much appreciated, Lynn. That's what we strive for.
So I just wanted to touch on. I'm not gonna expand on what Frontline got because she's got the lowdown on that, and I think we've got that kind of nailed down to where we need it, I guess. But I wanted to speak on something. Um, It was years and years ago, and I was in a doctor's office, and I was reading an article about psychology, and it talked about there was a direct correlation between physiological, oh hello kitty, physiological changes in the brain due to extreme privilege. And what they found across the board, and it went absolutely in line with the level of privilege, is that in the brain the centers that light up for empathy would disappear as
Yep.
privilege increased. And it's quite now, this was probably 15 years ago. It's very widely studied and pretty well accepted now that like, look at Musk, look at these people, like they've got enough money to solve the world's, there could be no homeless people on the planet. They could solve, everybody that has cancer could have everything paid for. It's very well known that these people are sociopaths. And the invert of that is they found that people that lived in poverty and struggle had less emotional regulation. And as
Yep.
we continue to talk about poverty being a form of trauma, and as someone with borderline personality disorder, we find, and CPTSD, and we find that trauma deregulates the brain's ability to process and tackle and handle and manage emotions. So,
Yep.
what we see in our society, in my opinion, is that we have rewarded sociopathy. You might have that mid-level manager where she's really nice to the up to the district manager, but she is really shitty to the people that work below her. She'll say everything's running great, and if something goes wrong, no, it's that new guy I hired 2 weeks ago. And they hire and fire and people at the bottom, and that's how our society runs. Is that the people at the bottom that do all of the work, they're taking all of that emotional trauma, they're dealing with poverty, all of this workload, is that they're becoming increasingly less able to regulate their emotions and are seen as unstable. They are
Yep.
seen as less professional, however you would like to word that. And we see these people that are already incredibly privileged, that have been taught probably by their peers and probably in their social structure growing up to manipulate, to hold back, to not feel, to not react, and to not to speak up. You know, they call it disorganized harmony. There was a study about kind of boomer family structures and narcissism and having that disorganized harmony where don't talk about it because it's not a conflict until we talk about it. It doesn't matter how unhappy or abused someone is, we don't talk about it. And that's the conflict. And of course, that's how abuse thrives, is in silence. And I think that as we see more people moving into poverty, maybe that will become more of a subject where, hey, feeling emotional is a good thing. If we see someone suffering, if there's homeless people cold, yeah, we should be upset and feel bad for them, not, oh, they're bums and whatever the discourse may be. No, that is someone that is suffering. You should feel an emotion and act on it in a positive way instead of getting angry or trying to dismiss it or put it back on the person. If we learn to use that emotion in a positive way, we can enact change. And lives like this and these conversations are the start of that empathy and that sharing of the discourse and trying to react in a mature way that actually does something and is proactive. And I hope that we see society restructure in a way that we do not reward a lack of emotion. That should not be what we strive to have for people in power, because that's exactly how we get here. Trump does not care if, say all the, he's working for those blue collar guys. Well, Tiger Cat is a huge machine manufacturer based out of Canada. Wait until those logger boys see how much their machine payments go up on their skidders and bunchers. They are going to cry. Wait till they see how much their everything goes up, all the parts to fix their equipment, their trucks,
Yep.
their cars, as
Yep.
we shift into EV. It's going to be a huge, huge awakening. I hope that people stop rewarding these people that look like they're already sitting on a throne. And, like the bird doesn't just feed the healthy chick, you feed the little chick too, and everybody's healthy on the team, instead of having this massive divide between people that are so unbothered by reality. They sit there, celebrity culture, professional sports, and we idolize these people that have no clue what we're going through. And I don't know why people relate to it so much. Or people, why are you relating to Trump and Elon? I bet they've never hung a picture with a drill for their wife, run a lawnmower. Elon's playing with a chainsaw. Honey, you could not drop a chainsaw. You have no idea how to operate a chainsaw. Why are we idolizing and relating with these people that have nothing in common with us? And I'm really hoping that we start to see that emotionality is a good thing. And if we can lift people out of poverty and trauma, Indigenous people, people that are marginalized, and get them to a place where they can regulate their emotions, we can use them in a positive way. That's what I would like to see.
Okay. Now, okay, I'm going to completely derail this thing just because I can.
You betcha.
So I want to the mental health component of what you were just talking about, Sasquatch, is something that I've bought up on my TikToks numerous times because I
Yep.
utterly believe that our not only our brains, even if our lives were running along, kind of the way they should be, and we didn't have the major problems that we did, I believe that at a fundamental level, the society that we currently live in is almost constantly overwhelming our mental health systems. The amount of input and the amount of processing that we do on a current level is beyond the scope of what humanity has ever dealt with. And it has made us susceptible. Now, when you add a trauma response into that situation, what that trauma response does is make you hypersensitive to anything that involves that trauma. If you have multiple traumas, there's hardly a damn thing that you can see in a day that isn't going to trigger you. And the social media has literally been designed to engage the amygdala on a constant, endless basis. And that's why so much of when we talk about we can't get through to them logically, it is because they are fundamentally, operationally running off of their amygdala 24/7. And we've literally had 10 years of the social media game and the conservatives pounding on that organ in the brain incessantly, day after day after day. They're coming for you. They're coming for your job. They're coming for your religion. They're coming for your everything. And that message continues to hammer on the amygdala. And I firmly believe it's one of the reasons that we can't reason with a good portion of these people, because we simply can't break the emotional cycle that the amygdala is currently in with so many of these people. Um, so uh, I want to ask the panel here now, uh, how much do you believe that the traumas that we are experiencing are being manufactured on purpose and being manufactured by the master manipulator Putler, and through his crony Trump, we're now seeing the same sort of systematic beatdown of people's awareness and their amygdalas. I believe what we're seeing is simply what has happened roughly in under Putler's regime for about the last 15 years. We're just now seeing that same game plan enacted here in North America, and he found the perfect dupe, a geriatric diaper wearing 80 IQ narcissist and sociopath, because sociopathy in and of itself, these people are going to be attracted to positions of power and influence. Automatically they're going to be drawn, and the society that we live in right now allows these people to achieve positions of power and influence that their mental emotional capacity should not have them in whatsoever. So, Anastasia, I'm just looking at the time here. I'll kind of run top to bottom on the panel here and get kind of everyone's last thoughts on this particular subject, and then I think we'll have to shut her down for tonight and let everybody go home. Anastasia, what do you have to say?
I think I agree. They've relied on trauma to manipulate people, but I think being empathic is not weakness. It's a sign of intelligence. It's emotional intelligence. But
Yep.
they rely on the fact that people who are dominating and power driven are relying on the fact that we will try and be nice. They try to play into our empathy. If we boo people in public, they say that we're the horrible ones, even though they're happy to cut off disabled veterans. I mean, they pick on the smallest thing we do to say that we are the bullies and we are cruel. where actually we are the strong ones who are standing up for the weak. I don't hear anybody here who wants to take action just to benefit themselves. I'm hearing people who want to protect their children, protect their parents, protect their neighbors, protect their First Nations people. I am not hearing selfish people who already have $100 billion and don't want to share any of it with anyone else. I'm hearing people who are committed to their communities and neighborhoods. And part of that is that we channel our anger, our disgust, and that we put that into action and we don't let ourselves be pushed back down. We get our children and pull them together and educate them, and we take social action on a grassroots level and demand that we be heard. They're going to say that we are the ones that are bullies. I mean, you can see it in the comments section today that
Yep.
we're terrible for being angry, that we're
Yep.
terrible for demanding justice. Where, I mean, this is ridiculousness when I am begging that US babies are born into a healthy environment, that US school children don't need plates in their backpacks so they don't get shot. I don't live in America and I don't plan to go there. But I still want the best for US citizens. I don't want people who are homeless. I don't want people who are drug addicted. I don't want people to have untreated mental health. I want a fairer system where people get a hand up, not a handout. And part of that is public health and public education. Nobody here is being selfish. People here want the best for Americans. And from Australia, we feel terribly sorry for the US. They have been conned by con men. I can't wait to see Elon Musk lose it all and then he can see how it is to be poor. Except he won't because he's a white collar criminal. They're
Yep.
making a car yard at the White House to
Yep.
sell his products. Can people not see this? This is horrendous. I think Canada and Australia and the other Commonwealth countries need to become tighter together. I think we need to join closer together. Stand united.
Thank you, Anastasia, for that. But Anastasia, I wanted to, you've been a fresh breath there here. I thank you so much for coming into the live. You've been absolutely wonderful to talk to. And just as a Canadian, I wanted to send all of our best to all of our Australian friends down there. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, thank you. Sasquatch, what do you have to say?
I'm glad we got our international person up on the panel. Maybe we can make a trend of it because it was really, really good to hear from you, Anastasia. You are definitely kind of the same thought process as a lot of people in these lives, and hearing that you are in healthcare and worrying about younger folks and women's rights being attacked, and it's just all the kind of stuff that we like to talk about here. And just really, really glad that you came into the live. Please come back again. Make sure you come back again to another live. And
I felt very welcome. Thank you.
you bet. I'll drop and let someone else talk. I talked enough.
Thanks, Sasquatch. Angela, final thought for tonight?
Yes, first of all, Anastasia, you're an inspiration. Thank you very much. Listening to you and your points that you brought up is realization that we need to really take in a different direction on how we think about things. And I just want to say, first of all, for our situation, we all need to help one another out, be kind to one another, and the realization is we're not going to give in to any of Trump's different tactics to try to attack us. We're not going to give in. And so I just wanted to say that, but thank you, Anastasia.
Thanks, Angela. Lynn, final thought for tonight? Lynn, are you there?
Yes, I'm sorry. For the
There you go.
host, I thank you. It was a positive, educational post for live for us, and you listened to us, and I thank you for that. Anastasia, I think it's sad that US is attacking Australia when you guys did nothing, and I thank you for everything you've said tonight. I've listened, I've heard. I'm a Canadian. I'm a proud Canadian. I'm going to teach my kids to be proud Canadians and to vote accordingly. I think education, because I'm a school teacher, is the number one thing you can do. You have to educate your children. You have to educate sometimes your parents. You have to educate people. And it's important right now that we're aware of what's going on in the world. That's it.
I agree. Thanks so much, Lynn.
You're welcome.
OW, final thought for tonight?
Well, I do want to say in that thank you for allowing me to be in the box and everything. Like, not everybody allows somebody that they don't know into the box. I do want to say thank you to Anastasia and that for being a caregiver in her profession. And this is coming from somebody who has a child that was conceived in a sexual assault. Like, her mom ended up committing suicide before she was born, like after she was born. I'm not her biological father, so I do understand with that whole aspect. The only thing is I wish her mom was here to see her grow up, but that's just unfortunately how life goes. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that she doesn't have her mom, but I do appreciate the line of work that she does. But again, I do want to touch up on what Lynn was saying, that it is very important for our young people to know the issues that are ahead of our political system. Like I was saying earlier in the stream, and that I would never push my political views on people. I do believe that right now Carney is the best choice short term, but long term, a lot of people may disagree with me, but I think long term Polyev would be the better choice long term. But that's just my opinion. I do strongly believe that within the Canadian system, we can do better. Same thing even in the US, having somebody that has their hair dust, like having hair in that that's dust up with Cheeto dust. I'm not 100% sure if that was a smart move, but I guess that's what they wanted. I just strongly believe that as one continent, we can do better to support each other, and that's just how I look at things. Like, I strongly do agree with what Anastasia was saying, that Canada, Australia, and Great Britain and other Commonwealth countries should stick together in this fight with the US and just back each other no matter what. And that's what I strongly believe. But thank you again for having me on.
Thanks very much, John, or OW. I really, I don't know how you want to be called there, OW or John. But thanks
You
very
can
much
call
for
me
coming
John.
in and giving us your opinion. As I mentioned, that's what Beaver Politics is about. I really want to get different perspectives. I really want to get international perspectives, and that's really what the show is about, is an open discourse. Now, anti-progressive Canadian, join us next week. I'll put you in the box and you can have your say. So be here next week and we'll see what you have to say on it and whether you can back up what you're saying here. So Frontline.
All right, I guess I'll end it strong for everybody. So right now we're in a battle, right? And it's not just politics, it's not just policy, but we're literally in a battle for truth. And the far right doesn't win because they have better ideas. They win because they manipulate, they lie, they play on fear, they play on emotion. And propaganda is their greatest weapon. And if you don't recognize it, you're going to fall for it. Or worse, you're going to waste your energy fighting it the wrong way. So here's what everybody needs to do. And sorry if it comes across as controversial, but you need to get mentally tough. This is not a fight for the weak-willed or the overly emotional. And that doesn't mean that you stop feeling. It means that you start thinking first. If you feel anger and outrage, that's fine, but you need to use them as fuel, not as blindfolds. You need to learn how to step back, see through the lies, and dismantle them with cold, hard logic. And most importantly, the message that I want to make most clear to everybody, because I know y'all are such nice people, you need to stop believing that kindness will win over the mega crowd. They do
Yep.
not respect you. They don't respect it. They don't respond to it. They see it as weakness. The only thing they understand is strength. So stop cowering. Stop hoping that if you're nice enough, they're going to see reason. They won't. The only way to push back against bullies is to just push back harder. So be relentless, be sharp, be unshakable, because the future literally depends on those of us who refuse to back down.
Well said as always, Frontline. That was a good note to end off on. So I just want to say thank you very much for everybody in the panel. Anastasia, our sister from Australia, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of an international perspective tonight. I think you've got a lot of fans here tonight, including myself. Thank you everyone else on the panel, OW, Frontline, Lynn, Angela, Sasquatch, thanks for being here. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. The show is Radicalized. I am your host, Mr. Radical. I am here every Saturday at 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern. And I think this went really well.
Thank you so
Lynn,
much.
hang on, Lynn. I'll let you finish here. I want to thank everybody who's joining in, but if you are part of our international audience that was joining tonight, I'd love for you to show up next Saturday and once again offer us an international opinion. So, Lynn, go ahead. Lynn, go ahead there, girl. You had something to say?
Yes, I'm sorry. I want to say thank you for your live. It was very respectful. We got our point of views across. We each took our time. We didn't speak over each other, and everybody was respectful. It was one of the best lives I've been in.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate that. That's why we try to run things here on Beaver Politics. We do have different hosts that run the show a little bit different. For myself, I really want to see people get their voice in and have the ability to be heard. I was hoping to get a little bit more of a different perspective on here tonight. But again, Anastasia, you joining us, awesome. And I'm hoping, like I said, for next week, if you're part of our international audience, come in here next week. We'd love to have your opinion as well. Anastasia, if you're free next Saturday, you know where we are. And on that note, thank you and good night to everybody. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for being part of the panel. And
Good night.
thank you for caring, because I do believe at a fundamental level, Beaver Politics is about caring for our fellow human beings. And that is why I am here.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed the conversation. It's Sunday lunchtime here, so it's the middle of the day for me. We're a bit ahead.
Well, we'll be here next week, so we'd love to have you
You
back.
were great. You were great, Anastasia.
Uh,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Just know that we are united across the oceans. We can stay united. We
Absolutely.
just need to stay
I
together
agree.
and keep being empathic, but also be strong.
I
I do
agree.
want to add on that like I did give everybody that was in the box a follow. I do want to let everybody know that to show support to everybody that was here, because Like, I strongly believe in supporting fellow Canadian streamers and people that do support Canada and themselves. Like, I am a big fan of Australia and Commonwealth countries and that. So I just wanted to let everybody know I gave everybody a follow.
Right on. That's what we're all
Thank
about,
you.
community.
Thank you.
So on that note, thank you everybody, and good night, and we will see you on Beaver Politics tomorrow and Monday and Tuesday, and I will be back here full force next Saturday, 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern. Hope you're going to be here next week. We'll see you then. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.
Night.
Oh, good day.